barriers to success.
Monday,
While what these women are holding looks like a simple piece of paper,
You know, when somebody can advocate for themselves in a new community, you do see not only is there a mental health transition, but there is a physical transition.
Autumn Wild says what they are actually holding are tools for success.
You know, for us that are U.S. born and raised in the communities, you know, we learn how to navigate public transportation, for example. But if you've ever navigated public transportation, it can be complicated.
Yeah.
And so imagine if you don't speak the language.
Weil is the executive director of Charlotte nonprofit International House, devoted to helping immigrants and the international culture flourish, with programs like English classes, pathways to citizenship, and cultural sensitivity classes for community members. In 2023, the nonprofit helped more than 5,000 people, with 109 individuals becoming citizens.
And that's part of our mission too, not only helping newcomers from other countries, but helping the community at large understand cultural differences.
One way they are doing that, through the arts. International House partners with Blumenthal Arts for a competition for visual artists who are immigrants that live in Mecklenburg County called The Journey.
And it allows them, they have to enter a piece.
Do you ever find your hands going? Ready to roll? Y'all, thank you for coming again. We have with us our signer, Josie McDaniel Burkett, and now prayer, Chaplain John Denny.
Good afternoon. I'm Chaplain Denny with the South Carolina National Guard. Martin Luther King Jr., he said, "We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope." So please, if you're a praying person, I invite you to pray with me. Loving Lord, during this storm, some have experienced finite disappointments, such as disruptions of their schedules, power outages, postponed doctor's appointments, delayed starts to school, damage to some homes, or canceled flights separating them from loved ones. But we do have hope. The storm will move out. Lives will return to normal. And I pray, Lord, we hold on to infinite hope. And when we have hope, we have strength. Help us to hold on to hope together, O Lord. Amen.
Thus our motto is, I breathe, I hope, which is highly pertinent. And one prayer has been answered so far, and that is because of the storm, as a result of the storm, we've had no storm-related fatalities so far. So that's good news. We're entering the third act of this three-act play. First act was down in the Low Country, starting with Beaufort and up Jasper and on up to Charleston, and then the storm went out and has come back into the PD and the Grand Strand and heading all the way up to Dillon and up in those parts. And soon it will be entering the third act, which is the rains are gone, but the flooding, the river flooding will take place. And there will likely be a lot of that. We don't, of course, have precise information, but we know we had a lot of flooding in 2015 and also 2018. And it does not look like it's going to be that bad right now, but it still will be difficult in those areas that experienced it before, particularly around the PD and the Edisto rivers, which are expected to crest this weekend. And I want to emphasize again that even though it's not raining, the wind's not blowing, there's still a lot of danger from this moving water. And where you see it ponding, that doesn't mean it's clean and that the children are supposed to play in it, because there's no telling what's in it from all the overflows. There's a lot of danger there. And again, don't drive on roads, don't drive on water in roads, because there's a lot of danger there as well. But I want to thank everybody for their cooperation. Team South Carolina has really come through. We know the work's not through yet. And after the flooding's over, then we'll have a lot of cleaning up to do. But I want to thank all the citizens for their participation. They were listening, watching, paying attention. They were being smart, they were being safe, and they were being good neighbors. And it has worked. So with that, we'll have probably our last session of formal reports like this, unless something changes. So, John Quirrell.
Thank you, Governor. After making landfall near Bulls Bay, South Carolina, around 2 a.m. this morning, Debby is now located about 55 miles east-southeast of Charlotte, which is pretty much right on the state line, and has wind speeds of 40 miles per hour. I'm happy to share that Debby has increased its forward speed to 10 miles per hour and should lift into North Carolina shortly. However, we have ongoing flooding concerns and rising rivers that we still need to contend with. The highest winds associated with Debby's landfall today were 48 miles per hour at North Myrtle Beach, 47 miles per hour at Spring Maid Pier, 45 miles an hour at Fripp Island, 44 miles an hour at Marlborough Airport, and 43 miles per hour even well inland at Rock Hill. While gusty winds could persist today, gusting as high as 20 to 30 miles per hour, even up to about 40 miles an hour closer to the Charlotte area, they should be diminishing through tonight and into Friday as Debby departs. Bands of heavy rainfall developed yesterday and have continued into this afternoon, mainly impacting the northeast portion of the state, including the PD, portions of the Charleston Tri-County area, the Catawba region, and the northern and eastern Midlands. 24-hour rainfall in these areas generally range from 4 to 7 inches, with the highest totals including 7 inches at Lynch's River in Florence County, 6 to 6.5 inches at Aner and Laurus in Horry County, as well as in Mullins in Marion County, and even just over 6 inches in Rock Hill in York County. This rainfall has been sufficient to produce localized flash flooding. The flash flood threat could persist into tonight as outer bands from Debby continue to impact the area. The next phase of the event will be the considerable rises on area rivers, with many across the eastern part of the state expected to reach moderate flood stage and a few possibly major flood stage. Fortunately, we are not expecting rivers to reach the levels that we saw during Hurricanes Matthew or Florence, as the governor mentioned, but there is particular concern for major flooding on the PD at Cheraw, PD at PD, Little PD River near Gallivan's Ferry, the Edisto River near Givens Ferry, and the French Quarter Creek near Eugene. Some of this river flooding, especially on the PD, will be long-lasting. The National Weather Service is working with DNR, SCEMD, other state agencies, and local authorities to assess the risk to communities along these rivers. So please continue to follow advice of local officials and avoid flood waters. Forecast information, as well as the latest river forecasts, are available at weather.gov. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you very much. Kim Stenson.
Thank you, sir. Kim Stenson of the State Emergency Management Division. The State Emergency Operations Center, where we're at right now, remains at OPCON 1, which is our highest level of readiness. Priorities here haven't really changed too much since yesterday, supporting local shelter and possible localized evacuation operations, maintaining transportation lifelines, and planning for possible riverine flooding, especially in the PD area and along the Edisto River. We'll also be supporting damage assessment operations, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. We continue to communicate regularly with the local emergency managers across South Carolina to ensure resources and assistance are being deployed where they're needed the most. Our teams are ready to respond to any developments as Debby continues to move away from our state, including the recovery support. Right now, 6 counties are OPCON 1, which is our highest readiness level and is down from 11 yesterday, and 16 counties are at OPCON 2, which is our enhanced readiness level, and we expect that to move around over the next couple of days. County focus includes sheltering and possible rescue and local evacuation operations. Damage assessments are being conducted today in Bamberg, Berkeley, Charleston, Colleton, Dorchester, Florence, Jasper, Marion, and Orangeburg. Preliminary Residential damage reports have been received from Berkeley, Charleston, and Colleton, with little change from yesterday, but the numbers did change slightly. We're looking right now at 70 homes with some level of damage, including one home that's been destroyed and 15 homes with major damage, and we'll continue to gather that information. Berkeley, Charleston, Colleton, and Horry are reporting a total of 16 businesses that have experienced some level of damage. And government infrastructure damage is being assessed and will continue to be assessed as we transition to riverine flooding operations and the resulting impacts from that. However, we'd like to note, though, that communications, which is an extremely critical part of our infrastructure, remains in excellent condition throughout the state. In the logistics area, we have fielded 213 requests ranging from sandbags to swiftwater rescue teams, of which 196 have been completed or in progress. Our public information phone system remains open for residents to call in with any questions, and that number is 1-866-246-0133. In closing, I'd like to remind everyone of several items. The first is to stay away from flooded areas and avoid taking any unnecessary risks. We also encourage the public to report any storm damage through the South Carolina Emergency Manager app, which is easily downloaded at your app store. And it's also important to stay connected with reliable sources for updates. Misinformation, as we mentioned yesterday, can be extremely dangerous, so please rely on official channels, including your local emergency management officials, for accurate information. And again, our website at scemd.org and our South Carolina Emergency Manager app remain and continue to be excellent sources of information. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Now, Brett Howard, who's our federal coordinating officer, and early this morning we had a lengthy visit from Robert Salmon, who is the regional administrator of the Federal Emergency Management Administration, and we appreciate the very full and active support.
You're welcome, Governor. It's a pleasure. Like I said many times, it is a real pleasure to be here in South Carolina and work with this great state. As you've heard, the shift is shifting a little bit. The governor referred to being in Act 3 on the flooding, and we still stand here to support the state with whatever resources they may need. In the background, getting ready for the final act, the long term, the long piece of this is the recovery. And so we'll be starting to roster and get ready for the state's request for joint preliminary damage assessments and help the state move to the recovery process as soon as they're ready. Right, we're not going to get ahead of the state. We're going to be ready when they ask. That's all I have, Governor. Thank you.
Thank you. Major General Van McCarty, National Guard.
Thank you, Governor. South Carolina National Guard continues to support the state in response to Tropical Storm Debby. We currently have about 450 soldiers still on duty. We have 66 high water vehicles that are deployed along the coast, with the bulk of those up in the northern part, 36. In the central, we have 26. And we're going to keep 4 in the southern area just to be able to respond to any needs that we may have with flooding on the Eddystone. Still have debris clearing teams that are deployed and available, and 2 of our LNO teams are still supporting the counties. Nothing significant to report on our aviation capability. However, the skies seem to be clearing, and we should be able to support flight operations now from Georgetown south if the situation did occur. We're continuing now to evaluate the storm, determine what the needs will be, and we will begin to demob soldiers as quickly as we can. Many of these are traditional M-Day guardsmen that left their homes, they left their jobs to come and serve, and we want to start to redeploy them back to their traditional lives as soon as we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Secretary Justin Powell, Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Governor. The men and women of the South Carolina Department of Transportation continue to work around the clock in response and repair for Tropical Storm Debby. Because of the heavy rains that have been falling in the PD as well as in the Charlotte suburbs, our number of road closures are now at 111 statewide. That number will continue to change as this storm moves out. I'm happy to report, though, since the storm has begun, we have reopened 69 roads across the state that were closed due to the storm. Our focus right now in the Low Country and in the Midlands is really on assessing and repairing roads that were damaged during the storm, and we will prioritize that based on focusing on our primary routes first and then our secondary roads later. In the PD, as this is an active storm, we're actively engaged in response and preparing for any flooding. We have 18 assistance crews that are ready to move into the PD if necessary from the upstate to assist our personnel there. This has been a long event, so encourage motorists again to slow down, encourage them to avoid floodwaters, and if you find a DOT crew, a utility crew, a local public works crew working on the side of the road, be sure to slow down and give them the space that they need to do their jobs. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. Director Robert Woods, Department of Public Safety.
Thank you, Governor. Rob Woods, South Carolina Department of Public Safety. With regard to our calls for service, what we're finding is they're trending back towards normal. On Tuesday, we were at 640 calls for service, and again, those are primarily from collisions, disabled motorists, and blocked roadways. We were at 640 on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we're at 537, so a little bit more than 100 below where we were. So again, we're moving back towards normal, and we would expect to be there by tomorrow morning. That said, we have 239 state law enforcement personnel from our Highway Patrol Division, State Transport Police Division, SLED, DNR, and Triple P still assigned to the Traffic Incident Response Mission on day shift today. Tonight, we'll start to draw down some of those personnel and getting our specialized units from the Highway Patrol and State Transport Police, as well as our state support agencies, demobilized so they can get back to their normal operations. We will tonight maintain 125 law enforcement personnel on the line patrol mission in the impacted area from the Midlands to the coast, so there'll still be 125 total out this evening. And as we go back to normal operations tomorrow for DPS, we'll transition into support for SLED and post-storm law enforcement missions, and in the PD specifically, we'll have 46 of our personnel assigned to support SLED if needed. That said, again, as a reminder, avoid travel when you can. If you have to travel, just be extra cautious while you're driving. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. Chief Mark Keel, State Law Enforcement Division.
Good afternoon, Mark Keel, Chief of SLED. Again, SLED, DNR, Triple P, South Carolina Department of Corrections personnel, South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy personnel have 64 officers or agents that are supporting 4 missions across the state. 41 agents and officers have been supporting the Highway Patrol in Troops 5, 6, and 7. At 7 p.m. tonight, agents and officers that have been assigned to Troops 6 and 7 will begin to demobilize. And at 7 a.m. in the morning, the rest of those agents and officers that are supporting the Highway Patrol will demobilize and return to normal operations or be ready to assist other agencies or other counties that are needed. We have 4 agents and officers continuing to assist in Dorchester County Sheriff's Office with directed patrols and monitoring the roadways for flooding. We have 7 boat teams, 7 DNR, and 7 SLED agents staged to assist patrol and evacuation missions in areas anticipated to flood. That coverage extends from Lakeview and Dillon to Hemingway in Williamsburg County along the PD River. We also have officers that are assigned here at SEOC that will continue to provide security here at SEOC while it's open. Future operations, ESF 13, again, DNR, SLED, Triple P are planning river patrols along the Waccamaw River in Horry County and the Edisto River in Colleton County beginning Friday, August the 9th. We'll have 5 boat teams comprised of 1 DNR, 1 SLED, and 1 Triple P officer that will be assigned to patrol and monitor the Waccamaw River and Intercoastal Waterway. And we'll have 2 boat teams comprised of the same personnel assigned to patrol and monitor the Edisto River. Our aviation assets are available and ready for any damage assessment or rescues. And I will tell you that I've been in touch with all the sheriffs in the PD area of the state as we continue to monitor the rainfall in the upstate and see what the rivers are going to do, see how those areas are going to deal with the amount of water that's coming down from North Carolina. We will continue to monitor that, provide resources to those sheriffs and those local government agencies in those counties. And we're also at this time reaching out to counties in York, Lancaster, Chester, and those further around where we're starting to see these heavy rain bands continuing in the upstate of South Carolina. Thank you.
Conley Ann Ragley, Department of Social Services.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon, South Carolina. I'm Conley Ann Ragley with the Department of Social Services. Our DSS mass care teams are continuing to be deployed to emergency operations shelters and shelters across the state to support all of the affected counties. We've begun closing many of the shelters open at the request of counties in response to Tropical Storm Debby. Our current census as of 1:30 p.m. today includes 8 total shelters that are open with a total census population of 22 citizens. As a reminder, DSS operates these shelters at the request of county operations, and our DSS professionals staff these shelters in coordination with the Salvation Army and the American Red Cross. We will continue to monitor situations and as counties request shelters to be closed, but at this time we have no further updates.
Thank you. Director Myra Reese, Department of Environmental Services.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon. The priorities at the Department of Environmental Services remain the same. We're staying in very close contact and coordination with our local emergency officials. And I wanted to give you a few numbers and just current status of where we stand with some of our dams, water, wastewater, and coastal impacts. First, beginning with dams, no issues were reported overnight. And we still are only aware of one breach of an unregulated dam. I think there was one that was mentioned may have breached a second unregulated dam. No impacts to roads or homes, but we're trying to verify that. I believe that one was in Florence. But yesterday I mentioned that we would begin our post-storm assessments of dams on Friday. Our team at Department of Environmental Services, our dam safety program folks were very anxious to get out in the field today where they could safely do so. So we began those post-storm assessments of high and significant hazard dams in the state, including some of the pre-storm assessed dams as well. So we identified about 61 or 62 dams. As of 1:30 this afternoon, we have completed about 40 of those post-storm assessments, and I'm happy to report that no urgent or very concerning issues were identified in those post-storm assessments. As far as coastal impacts, beginning tomorrow, our Bureau of Coastal Management will be deploying teams to some of the known erosion hotspots along the coast to assess damage, including damage from the tornado that hit Edisto. These hotspot areas include Garden City, Isle of Palms, and Sullivan's Island. There also may be some impacts that we are not aware of, and we'd like to encourage residents along the coast to use our My Coast app to submit photos to us of beachfront damage. A special message to citizens who have private wells, especially those that are in the PD and low country area where your private well may have been impacted by floodwaters. Please contact our private well hotline for guidance on information on how you can disinfect your well and how we can help you get the well tested and offer any assistance that we can. That number, that private well hotline number, is 1-888-761-5989. That number again is 1-888-761-5989. In closing, just briefly mentioning drinking water and wastewater facilities, we had one advisory in Berkeley County. It impacted probably about 100 residents, and the water system did a remarkable job going door to door to notify folks of that advisory. We should have some testing done, and that advisory lifted very soon. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you very much. Director Emily Farr, Labor Licensing and Regulation.
Thank you, Governor. It's a good day for South Carolina when we get toward the end of an emergency event, and I don't have a lot to report on our search and rescues. But we are all very thankful for all of the capability, the collaboration, and the support that we have for our South Carolina search and rescue teams, as well as our partners from other states and with FEMA that have been here through the duration of the storm with us. These teams have been mobilized and ready to respond throughout this entire storm, and at the the height of the mobilization, we had 414 personnel ready to deploy and respond as necessary. In the days ahead, as flash flooding potential decreases, we will be releasing the out-of-state teams and releasing them back home. But that's not to say that we are not ready to respond to any flooding that may occur in the PD area if response is necessary. We have our extremely capable South Carolina state teams, that's South Carolina Task Force 1, as well as our regional task force teams that will be here and will remain to be deployed or to ready to be deployed to the PD area and the northeast region of the state if needed with potential flooding. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Director Andrew Bateman, Office of Regulatory Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Governor. Andrew Bateman, the South Carolina ORS. We continue to be in frequent communication with utility representatives. As of right now, we stand at approximately 7,899 storm-related outages. The utilities are working diligently and around the clock to restore service as it is safe to do so. Thank you, Mr. Governor.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions?
Yes, sir. Governor, directed towards Director Reese, you mentioned that 62 dams began post-assessments, and so far 40 have been checked. Is that correct? 40 of those, is that within the Midlands or the Low Country?
There's probably about 8 counties. We identified those 62, number one, that those are areas we can safely go ahead and start the post-storm assessments. But we also looked at the total rainfall amounts, and it was a combination of hazard dams and significant hazard dams as far as classifications, and also I think about 8 of the 11 pre-storm assessed dams that we did before. So currently, so far, there's no urgent issues that need immediate action. So we just feel like that's a really good sign for us so far. And we will continue those post-storm assessments through the weekend.
I want to emphasize everyone is saying so far because it's not over yet. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
For Director Powell or Secretary Powell, there's been a lot of talk about inspecting dams. What about bridges, particularly with rising river waters? Are there any bridges that you're inspecting or keeping an eye on ahead of that?
Sure. So, I mean, obviously, what we will do after a flooding event, so we will look at it if a bridge gets closed, and there have been bridges closed because of the floodwaters. We will send out a bridge inspection team right after there, and they will go look at the bridge. And if there's any findings, we'll keep the bridge closed. But right now, everything we've seen so far is we're able to reopen the bridge. If there's approaches are typically what wash out during the storm, and we'll get in there and repair it as quickly as possible.
Do you have a sense about how many bridges have been closed by the storm so far?
I believe it's around 30, but I can get you the confirmed number.
Secretary Powell, as far as the road closures in the Midlands, where are those located and when do you expect those to open back up?
Sure. So there's several in Richland County. Some of them were already closed beforehand due to some of those rains we had beforehand. Where I would say the predominant number of closures we have right now are still in Jasper County, Colleton County, down the lower half of the state. Now we're seeing a number of them in the PD, Florence, Dillon, Marlboro counties, and then a few up in York County as well. So it's across the state, and it's really just where those heavy rains are falling.
Another question. Yes, sir.
For Director Reese, again, you mentioned that DES was looking into a potential issue at an unregulated dam in Florence. Do you have any more details on that?
I don't. The staff are en route to go check that out. But here again, the report that we received was, and it makes sense, it's unregulated. So there's no risk to property or roads. So we're just going out there to verify if something else was going on with the dam that might inform us our expertise moving forward.
And you mentioned that the department is looking to continue these kind of post-storm exams through the weekend. Do you know how many dams y'all are looking to inspect?
There are going to be hundreds, and it all goes back to just the significant rainfall, and that's a very important trigger for us. So there'll be hundreds. We will keep a tally and information on our website so folks will know exactly what we're checking and where we are.
Any more questions? Yes.
Question for
There's one over there.
For Conley Ann, can we get an update on how many shelters have closed to this point, in addition to the 8 that are
You
open?
want to come in?
great question. Thank you for that. We currently, as I mentioned, have 8 shelters.
Right now at 2:30, we're keeping you weather aware as we track the impacts of Debby across the Carolinas. A look at the destruction and cleanup already underway. Plus, Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich breaks down how climate change is fueling the heavy rains we're seeing. And a warning for car buyers. Vehicles damaged by today's heavy rains and flash flooding may end up at a lot near you. What to look out for? Thank you for joining us here at 2:30. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Today, we are keeping you weather aware as Tropical Storm Debby continues to impact our area. Turning out to the forecast. But before we get to meteorologist KJ Jacobs, let's take a look outside. This is a live look over uptown Charlotte. We've been under flash flood warnings all day. Meteorologist KJ Jacobs joins us now. And KJ, what do people need to know at this exact minute?
Well, Nick, we're certainly seeing rising water across the area. We're being heavily impacted by Debby right now. And Sugar Creek at Arrowwood Road approaching major flood stage. Be mindful that these creeks and rivers around town are certainly being inundated. They are rising and certainly impeding on nearby neighborhoods, some nearby streets and roads. So just know that if there's a road that you are approaching this afternoon and evening, that you certainly want to turn around. Do not cross over a road that is covered with water, because you do not know the depth of that water, especially with the ongoing rain happening right now. And we're certainly shattering records with the rain so far today, nearly 4 inches in Charlotte. This is the wettest day of the year and the wettest day since 2020. So yes, we're dealing with the rainfall and certainly continuing to break those records. So we will continue to be impacted by flooding rain for this afternoon. Those showers, they're letting up in intensity here and there, but just know that we're staying weather aware for today. So let's look at the flash flood warnings that are in effect for Lincoln County until 4 p.m. We also have flash flood warnings in effect for Rowan County until 4:30. And you can see it here. Gaston County will go until 5 p.m. And certainly dealing with, I think this is South Fork right there in Gaston County. So it's certainly impacting some areas nearby. And we have flash flood warnings in effect for numerous counties through Mecklenburg as well as Cabarrus County, all across the Piedmont for today. And we have flood alerts that will remain in effect until Friday morning. This is a flood watch that will remain in effect. Notice all of these counties from Iredell up into Catawba as well as Alexander, down through York and Chester counties, Lancaster, Union, and Anson counties, Stanley through Rowan and Cabarrus and Mecklenburg, even into Richmond and Chesterfield counties. Here's a look at radar right now. Notice we're seeing a few breaks in terms of the intensity of the rainfall. For those of you east of 77, this is east of Charlotte through Cabarrus into parts of Rowan, Stanley, Union and Anson counties through Chesterfield County. And you can see this storm is certainly the circulation around it taking the heavier bands just west of Cleveland County. Also some heavier showers through York and Chester counties and back into parts of Caldwell and Burke counties. You're dealing with some heavier showers into the mountains and foothills now. And you can see how this band is working its way through Morganton, west of Hickory, down through Forest City, just west of Shelby right here. So we're still being impacted heavily by the rain through this afternoon. Notice parts of York and Rock Hill as well as through Chester, some heavy pockets of rain for those of you there just south of Charlotte, and we're catching some breaks here and there east of Charlotte. So we'll continue with the rain for today, but here's a look at the track here. This is all going to continue to clear out overnight into your Friday. This storm is going to pick up some momentum. It will speed up some, and then it's going to race across land through the mid-Atlantic, that's the DC region, tonight into the day tomorrow, and then moving into New England by the start of the weekend. We'll have more on these impacts coming up in just a few minutes. Nick?
All right, thank you for that update, KJ. Well, right now we're learning at least one person is dead after an overnight tornado ripped through Wilson County. A search and rescue team says it recovered a body from a collapsed home just a few hours ago. Deputies say 9 other homes were heavily damaged as well as a middle school. And right now, Governor Roy Cooper is in Wilson County. He's meeting with community members at Springfield Middle School, saying the state will come back from this tragedy.
Right now, we are in response mode, making sure that we're working to save lives, and to get through this storm. The storm is moving through. Hopefully it will be out of here by Friday. After that, there will be a time for damage assessment.
And the governor added that the results from the damage assessment will decide how much funding the state needs. Meantime, as we speak, South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster is giving an update on how the state is recovering from the impacts of Debby. Just yesterday, McMaster said, quote, "We're in the second act of a 3-act play." Well, right now, here on your screen is a live look at the current Duke Energy outage map. We checked just moments ago. Duke is reporting roughly 20,000 outages in and around Charlotte. We will be keeping a close eye on these numbers throughout the day. And as we speak, the first day of school is wrapping up for Fort Mill and Rock Hill. Meanwhile, several school districts closed or switched to remote learning today in anticipation of Debby. We're keeping an eye out to see if there will be any impacts tomorrow due to flooded roads or downed trees, and we will bring you those updates right here on WCNC Charlotte. And it's no surprise Debby is having an impact at Charlotte Douglas today. So far, more than 610 flights have been delayed and 21 have been canceled. If you have to fly today, check your flight status often, since this severe weather is expected to last all day. And this storm, once again, showing us how climate change is impacting the Carolinas. WCNC Weather Impact Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich explains why a warming globe means the potential for more heavy rain.
If it seems like we get feast or famine in the rainfall department here in the Carolinas, you'd be correct. But increasingly, we are seeing record rainfall rates and more extreme rainfall events in this warming climate. As the atmosphere warms by 1 degree Fahrenheit, it can roughly hold 4% more water. So the process works like this. Colder air is like this black bucket. It holds less water than warmer air. The colder air holds water, but look how much. And the red bucket is like warmer air. It holds way more water. But it's just not the warm air. As Dr. Lackman at NC State University says, there's other factors involved.
They really depend on the amount of water vapor and the strength of the updraft, the strength at which the air is rising, the speed at which it rises. And those things are actually connected, because one of the things that forces the updraft, that fuels the updraft, is the release of heat by condensing water vapor. So those two things are tied.
Which is a huge problem in a place like Charlotte, which is already a flash flood prone city. Now, our topography, our numerous creeks, along with our rapid growth and development, all leads to a lot of flash flooding. So when you couple all of that with a warming climate, our flash flood threat increases. But we are doing something about it in Charlotte. Charlotte-Mecklenburg Stormwater Services is the agency responsible for surface water here in the city and the county.
We're improving infrastructure. You know, you have the old infrastructure with a pipe this big, when we're putting in pipes this big, you know, to get that water to flow a lot better. In our creeks, that's natural infrastructure. That's Mother Nature's way of moving water. Well, we're making those wider, and so we're clearing out some of the debris. And then we're also trying to get houses out of the way.
The real question is, how much more will we have to do with our infrastructure and the floodplains to prevent increasing flooding with these heavy rainfall events? One thing is for sure, even if you're not in a floodplain, you should consider flood insurance. As one FEMA official said to me, if you live where it rains, you should consider flood insurance. For WCNC Charlotte, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich.
And the cars that are in floodwaters this week may end up for sale later this year. Vehicle history reports are supposed to alert you to any problems, but that's not always guaranteed. That's because flood damage is only covered by comprehensive coverage. So if the owner did not have it, there was no need to report it to the insurance company, and they can sell the car without telling anyone. Or here are some tips we found for making sure a car you buy is legit. First, see if there's any kind of moldy or musty smell. Then pop up the trim panel on the side of the door to check for rust. Also, look in the door pockets for dirt that settles in when water floods into the car and then dries up. It's smart to check the spare tire compartment for rust, dirt, or smells as well. Well, right now, we're learning new information on the story we brought you just last week. A man is now behind bars in connection to a Mooresville house fire that killed 6 pets and hurt 2 firefighters. Investigators say Eric Cherry intentionally set the fire on Indian Springs Drive. Reports say Cherry broke into the home after a domestic dispute with his girlfriend, and that deputies at the scene overheard Cherry threatening the victim on the phone. No one was in the home at the time of the fire. Now back to our big story of the day. We're reminding you to stay weather aware today as Debby rolls through the Carolinas. Meteorologist KJ Jacobs has been tracking the impacts. And KJ, we're seeing a lot of flooded roads and downed trees across our area.
That's exactly right, Nick. And it doesn't take much for any trees to be impacted, especially power lines as well, because of all the rain we had as of late. And even within the last 24 hours since midnight last night, we have nearly 4 inches in Charlotte, more than 4 inches in Waynesboro, and add just a brief wind gust, anywhere from 15 to 25 mile an hour wind gusts. That can certainly cause some of these weaker trees to topple over, to fall. Some of the branches to come down can certainly impact some of those power lines out there. So just know we're still being impacted by Debby as it slowly works its way across the Piedmont. This is going to be an all-day event, so we want to stay weather aware through today, and the impact is going to be flooding. We're looking at some of the creeks being inundated, certainly spilling over onto some of the nearby streets, so we're going to have to watch for these conditions because they could worsen before they get better. And we're also looking to stay weather aware. Of course, we got you covered right here at WCNC Charlotte. We have our app as well to give you that notification of some alerts in your neighborhood. Taking a look at the 2 p.m. advisory, we have Tropical Storm Debby. It still meets the criteria for tropical storm, even over land right now, as there's a lot of tropical moisture to work with. The center of circulation is about 55 miles to our east and southeast, and we're sort of seeing it right over here where you can see this little spin happening just to our east and southeast, but we can certainly see where the bulk of the moisture is located right now, primarily to our west, and really pulling in a lot of this tropical moisture right around here. So we can certainly fill in the gaps, what appear to be gaps right now, but within this little section, there's still rain coming down, perhaps not as intense as what we're seeing back to the west of Charlotte, but we're certainly seeing widespread showers across the area. The intensity of the shower certainly vary from place to place, but the rain is still impacting all of us. In Lenore, we're getting some heavier showers between there and Hickory, also between there and Morganton at this time. And as we bring it down some, you can certainly see these showers are expanded through Forest City and through the Shelby area and covering Grover, up through York and McConnell's, dealing with some steady and heavier showers through Chester at this time into your afternoon. And we're seeing some lighter showers through Traysville, through Monroe, Waysboro, Chesterfield, Heath Springs, and Mount Pisgah, Clear Creek, and even into the Charlotte area. Notice up through Statesville, Mooresville, you're getting some showers coming through Salisbury, also in Concord at this time. So widespread showers across the area. We're stacking up on the rainfall totals, and as the rain continues, that flood threat remains in place. That is our biggest impact with this system with Debby, is going to be the ongoing flooding across the area. And you can see the alerts are in place. We'll have a flood watch that will remain in effect through the overnight into your Friday morning. Now, let's talk about the wind. The wind with this system is not intense, but any wind gusts out there is certainly having an impact on the area. With the rainfall coupled with the wind, we can certainly see some debris flying around here and there. And certainly over time, when you sort of back up and take a step back, you can certainly see the impact as it chips away at the infrastructure. Let's walk through it now. This is Futurecast between now and 8 p.m. The rain, it may let up some, but I don't think we're going to be out of the woods into the early evening hours. The wind will gust anywhere from 15 to about 25, isolated wind gusts upwards to 30 miles an hour. As it continues to pinwheel away from us through about 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, we'll have some cloud cover out there. The rain is going to diminish. We may have an isolated shower, but it will begin to dry up into your Friday. By 8 p.m. tomorrow, a passing shower cannot be ruled out, but we're looking at the impacts of Debby in terms of what's coming down will certainly begin to let up, but we could still have some areas inundated with high water. As we look now at the forecast track, notice as it continues to move through the mid-Atlantic through tonight, as well as moving into the New England region. This is something to keep in mind, because if you do have plans to travel for the weekend, your flights can certainly be impacted as this system is going to work up the East Coast through tonight into the day tomorrow, and then move into the New England region by the weekend. In terms of staying weather aware, watch for roads to be flooded. There are numerous roads out there impacted by the rain so far today, and we could have some additional power outages with the wind and the rain ongoing. So take it easy, use caution. Your 7-day forecast, we're going to stay weather aware through today. Tomorrow, low rain chances. We're drying out into your weekend. Temperatures could bounce back from the 70s today to the 90s by the weekend, and we should stay in the mid-80s for early next week. Nick?
All right, thank you, KJ. We're 2 weeks into the Paris Olympics. Let's take a look at the current medal count. The U.S. continues its dominance with 95 total medals, more than 20 ahead of second place China. In third, host country France with 52, followed by Great Britain with 51 and Australia with 43. Well, in less than an hour, a Charlotte native hopes to add another medal for Team USA. Anna Cockrell will hit the track in the 400-meter hurdles final at 3:25. This is her second Olympics. And a reminder that while the Olympics will be on WCNC Charlotte today, we still got your news headlines covered, and we will continue to track the impact of Debby. We'll be streaming live again at 3:30 with the latest developments. You can find that on our website, WCNC.com, or inside our WCNC mobile app.